Boom. All right. Hello. Welcome to today's video, the question and answer video. You've asked questions. I have some answers for you. So we're going to get started here. We're going to break this video up into probably 28-ish minute chunks. I'm not sure how many there'll be. There's lots of questions, and I have lots of answers. So we'll get started on that as soon as we do the dad joke. So the dad joke for today is, did you know that the first French fries weren't actually cooked in France? They were cooked in Greece. Greece. Oil. Greece. Greece. As always, no extra charge. All right, so your question and answer. So I hope you keep asking questions about photography. There's so much to learn here. I'm still learning. I imagine I'll be learning for the rest of my life. I am glad to answer your questions even after this class is over. So if you ever want to send me an email, drop me a note, see me on YouTube, whatever, I'm glad to answer your questions. So yeah, have fun with this. So here we go. So this is the question and answer assignment. And on Canvas, I've answered every question. I either said, I wrote you a comment with an answer to your question specifically, or I told you I would be answering it in this video. So I hope the answer that I wrote makes sense. If it doesn't, please let me know, and I'm glad to clarify. I hope the answers you'll see coming up here in this video make lots of sense. And also what I've done is I've created a page on Canvas in the module for this class, which has a bunch of the resources I mentioned, links and things, and suggestions. But there will be an assignment that goes with this to answer a couple questions about answers to your questions. So watch for that in Canvas. Yeah, so are you ready? Here we go, answering your question. So what I've done is I've broken them into some categories to help us kind of organize our thoughts a little bit. So the first category is stuck in quarantine. Sounds like a game show, sorry. Learning and next steps, and then editing and Lightroom, some questions about that. The business side of photography, gear and night photography, and then portraits and street photography. So we're going to go through a bunch of questions in all of these. Well, a couple of them I just have one question. So we're going to start with the first one, and it's stuck in quarantine. And here's the question. So it's about motivation. It's about inspiration. It's about I'm stuck in this space. What do I do? What do I do? So here's what I did. Well, let me show you this first. So whenever I'm feeling this way, I remember this quote, and it's pretty common in when people talk about inspiration. They bring out this quote, and they bring out this first part. Inspiration is for amateurs. Inspiration is for amateurs. And that's true. What that means is, the pros, we don't need inspiration. But here's the rest of the quote. So I want to let you read this for a second. So show up, get to work, do the work. If you wait for that, it's not going to happen. The inspiration happens in the work. So what I did to kind of prove this both to myself and hopefully a little bit to you is I'm in this room, so I'm gonna make some photos in this room. I'm gonna create some photos in this room. I'm gonna spend 10 minutes and see what I come up with. So here's a key to getting inspired when you feel like you're stuck or you have limits. Embrace those limits. Acknowledge that they're there. Okay, so this is the only place I can take photos. That's my limit. And then those limits help you be creative. Another tip, when you're taking a picture in an ordinary space, my suggestion is to think abstract. Think details. Don't think big picture, because the big picture, I'm looking at it right now. I'm looking at the room, my desk, my stuff that I look at all the time. The camera gives you permission to get closer, to use it as a paintbrush, if you will, to create something new from the stuff that's already there. So think abstract, look for light, look for texture, look for shadows, look for repetition, all sorts of fun stuff. So I'm going to show you 5 photos that I took. And I said I was going to give myself 10 minutes. I ended up taking 20 minutes and about 30 photos. I'm just going to show you 5. So here's photo number 1. Photo number 1. And that's this box back here. This it's a wood box I bought at a vintage store. It looks like a die, like a 6-sided dice. And you can see the detail in the wood. And other limit I put on myself with these photos, I took them with my phone. So I didn't even break out my camera so I can lean on all the tricks I lean on for that. But I used my camera, my phone, another limit. Next photo. That's just this blue light shining up on the wall here, okay? And the shelf. I just like the shadows it made. I used rule of thirds. Nothing fancy. But you just got to notice it. It's very abstract. It's artsy-fartsy. Have fun with it. So I have a lot of stuff in my office, but it doesn't get much more simple than light, shadow, wall, shelf. You can do this stuff at home. Yeah, IKEA. This is just this jar of pens. Phones down low, pointing up, makes them look big. You know this. I had my other camera sitting on my desk, and it was pointing, reflecting this umbrella over here to my right, this light source, light. And I liked how it looked. It was kind of cool. So detail. Next, I've got this. I have a pad on my desk, that big calendar pad, and I doodle on it as I'm on the phone or emailing or doing stuff or listening to podcasts. So it's doodled on the 20th, which is the last day of summer quarter. So you see all the texture of the paper. So yeah, go back to habit number 1 from the first day of class, or maybe it was the second day. Start seeing more interesting photos. They're all around you. They are all around you, even if you don't feel like they are. If you start looking for them, if you start looking for the details, and especially use the big 3, get closer, interesting perspective, and rule of thirds, good things can happen. I neglected doing this. I've been making this video off for a few days. I wasn't feeling inspired. But once I started creating those photos, now I'm inspired. I'm excited to do this. So get off the couch, wherever you sit, go create some photos. All right. Next category, learning and next steps. Learning and next steps. Here's a question. Which class would you suggest taking to improve better in photography? I'm glad you asked. Fall quarter and winter quarter, I will be teaching Art 149, which is called Creative and Storytelling Photography. That class is basically Art 147 with everybody has real cameras. So everybody has to have a camera like this. And we dig a little deeper. We go a little, we learn some more of the techniques. I teach you more of the camera stuff. That's one way. I've learned a ton from this thing called YouTube. I learned a ton from YouTube. There are so many videos. If you want to learn a specific thing, just go to YouTube, use its search engine, and find and watch a couple videos. And what happens as you do this is you'll build your library of people you learn from, and some some videos you won't click with the presenter or the presentation, and some you'll like the presenter and the presentation, and you'll start watching more and more of their videos. That's what I've done. If you want to learn about kind of the thinking about photography, philosophical about photography, my favorite photographer for that on YouTube is Sean Tucker. And you've watched some of his videos. He helps me think harder and deeper about photography, so I'm really grateful for that. But yeah, we have Art 149 in Highline for winter quarter. in winter 2021. Fall 2020 is, I think there's only 2 or 3 spots left. So if you're interested, hop on that soon. Then after that is Art 148, which is portrait photography. That class is best face to face. So hopefully it'll be in spring. If not, we'll wait until we're all face to face again. So that's what I've got here at Highline. Again, I'm glad to be a resource to you. Even after the class is over, follow my YouTube channel, subscribe, and I'll be teaching stuff there. All right, next question is about sharp focus. Sharp focus. This is a great question, and I just knocked my microphone thing off. I'm getting my phone out of my pocket. Hang on a second. Let's get recombobulated here. All right, sharp photos. I'm going to talk about 2 things, both how to do it with phones, how to do it with cameras, because they're a little different. Some things will overlap, but some things are a little different. First, the main thing you need to do is, if you're holding your camera, is make sure your shutter speed is above, remember what number? About 1/30th to 1/60th of a second. The older I am now, I'm trying to stay above 1/125th of a second. My muscles just aren't as steady as they used to be, so I try and keep it above that when I'm hand holding. Another thing for sharp focus is how you hold the camera is a big part of that. How you hold the camera. So if you're using this kind of camera, I will encourage you to think of the letter U, not the letter C. If you hold your camera like this, like the letter C, you're kind of wiggly. If you do this, you put your camera underneath. Here, I'll back up a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. Now I'm a tripod. My body creates a tripod. My elbows are in. If I'm here, my elbow's flying out. Similar on a phone. If you're holding your phone, do it like this. Get your elbows in. That'll help you be steady. Another phone trick while we're here on phones is the volume buttons. Volume buttons on your phone on the top. Either one will take a photo. Click. So I just took a photo. So I prefer to use the volume buttons than the on-screen shutter button, because when you push that, you're kind of moving the camera more than when you use the shutter button on top. Bonus trick for phone. This. Your headphone. I know this works on iPhones. I think it works on Android phones. So with your headphone plugged in, I don't even have to touch the phone. It becomes a remote trigger for my shutter. So click, I just hit the volume button on the remote and it will take a photo. Magic. So if you're not even touching the phone, it helps you you're not creating any extra motion. Yeah. And then lastly, for both phones and cameras is a tripod. So support your camera. If your shutter speed is longer than 1/30th or 1/60th of a second, if you need some help, get a little tripod. I have this tripod that I use with my phone. It's this cute little guy. Go like this and this and this, and then do this. And now it's a tripod, and this little thing goes on the top, and the phone sits in here. As soon as I open it enough. There we go. No, just slide it in, dummy. There we go. So it sits in here. This goes in here. You can go vertical, or horizontal. Tripod for your phone. Obviously, you know what tripods for cameras are like. I have a whole bunch here. We'll talk about gear later. But put your camera on a tripod, it'll make it steady. Now, one little trick with when you do have your camera on a tripod is you still have to touch the shutter button to make it take a picture. And when you're in those kind of medium shutter speeds from 1/30th of a second to about a half a second, you're still introducing some vibration. So I suggest using the self-timer or some kind of remote release, and then you don't have to touch it when you've got your camera on a tripod. Sharp photos. The best way is to make sure you hold it. If you're standing, holding your camera, get good posture and position with holding the camera. All sorts of ways to get sharp photos. There you go. Sharp photos. Next, what's the next question? Take Take selfies. Is that photography? And buried in here, besides the selfie question, which the answer is yes, selfies are photography, of course. But I think a self-portrait is more interesting than a selfie. A selfie is just here's me in the bathroom. A self-portrait is here's what I'm thinking about, here's what I'm feeling about, here's what I'm worried about, here's me. Deeper level. Again, it's more of a story than here's what I'm having for lunch. But in this there's the question about friends not really appreciating what you're creating, and that's important to pay attention to. But I would encourage that when you're creating any art and when you're creating your photos, the first person and maybe the most important person you're creating them for is you. If you don't find joy, value, interest in what you're creating, it's very unlikely that anybody else will. It becomes work. It's not really an art anymore. It's a job. Now, they can go together, job and work, and I'll talk about that a little bit on the business side of things. But yeah, start with yourself. There's 7 billion people in the world. There's an audience for what you create. There's someone who will be grateful that you made what you made, whether it's a selfie, if it's an artsy fartsy thing, if it's a self-portrait, if it's a landscape, if it's a portrait of friends and family. Someone will be glad you did it the way you did it. So that's a lot of fun to discover how you like to do things. Yeah, it's a fun journey. All right. Hope that helped on that question. Some more learning and next steps. So where can I find more interesting photographers? That's a great question. All right, so where can you find more interesting photographers? Here's my suggestion. There's lots of ways to do it. You could just go to YouTube, Google, Instagram, wherever, and type in a hashtag, a type of photography, a location, something to get you started. Or you can start with maybe photographers you already like and see who they follow. So I'm here at Sean Tucker, who I've mentioned I like, and I'm going to go see who he follows. So he's got a whole bunch of stuff, and most of these names I haven't heard. I'm assuming some are friends, some are people he knows, some are other photographers. Let's see if I can find... I've been looking lately. There's not a lot of female photographers that I follow, so I've been looking for some more females. Here's Adrian. Let's see what she's got. So she's got a praying mantis, some puzzles, some bugs. Nothing here for me really right now, although that's kind of interesting. All right, so how about Florence here? What's Florence? Lots of selfies. Maybe not. So, here's Adventure Travel. Let's see what she's got. So that's kind of cool. A lot of self-portrait kind of work in here while she's doing her journeys. Not quite my cup of tea. So I'm striking out here. But that's one way to go, is to, and obviously if I spent more than a few minutes, I might find someone that I would be interested in following. Here's this person, Milan Jules. Looks like just it's some street photography, people doing their lives, and all sorts of stuff. Maybe a little more interesting, little fashion stuff if you're into that. So again, lots of different ways to find other inspirational photographers. One suggestion would be to find photographers you already like and see who they follow. There you go. All right, here's the next question. If you can't get higher or lower for the photo, what else could you do? And you probably already know what the answer I'm going to tell you is. It's going to be to get closer. That's one thing you can do, is get closer. If you can't change your composition very much, I think maybe that's what the question is really going for. If I can't change my composition, what do I do? So my suggestion would be wait for another time when maybe light is doing something more interesting, or wait until your whatever your subject is maybe in a different place if it moves. Wait until there's enough ingredients of interest to create an interesting photo. Okay, so sometimes you'll see something that's almost there, and you'll want to take a picture, and maybe you will take a picture, but it won't go, oh, it won't sing at you. And then you got to decide, do I want to come again, try it again another time? Do I just realize this is a pretty thing to look at, but maybe it's not an interesting photo? Because that happens. There's lots of things that are beautiful, interesting, but when you do it with the camera, they don't end up very interesting. So there's lots of reasons that happens. So just enjoy the moment. But in the process of asking yourself that question, why isn't this interesting? That is really good work to be doing, to be thinking about, is there something I can do, or is this just not happening right now? And it's okay if it's not happening right now. Even when you have an assignment due, that's why you need to work ahead or not wait till the last minute, I should say. I'm terrible at that. I'm kind of recording this video at the not last minute, but a little later in the week than I wanted to. All right, some more next steps. And this is a really good question about what if I talk about stories and photos all the time. What if there's not really a story in the photo? So here's how I would answer that. Just so those 5 photos I showed you from the office I took earlier today, I don't think there's really any stories in any of those. And a lot of my photos don't have stories, but I still think they're visually interesting. There's maybe a little emotional component with the color, with the textures, with the composition, but not necessarily a story of good guy, bad guy, drama, hero, journey, all that stuff. And that's okay. Photos can be interesting without having a story, but they're even more interesting when they do have a story, when there's an element of even more beyond maybe an emotional component. There's that story component, that not necessarily logical, but there's a journey. That's really what stories are, is going from one place to another. So if you can add that, that's even better. And those opportunities, at least for me, are not as common. So that's why I lean into creating not necessarily story, but the emotional side out of it with composition, where I put the camera, getting closer and farther away, with light, paying attention to light, or bringing my own light. All right. What else we got next? Here's this one. What is one tip you've discovered that you would have helped you the most had you known it sooner? Here it is. Slow down. I am always focused on the next thing, that oftentimes I'm not present in the moment. I'm thinking about the next thing and I'm not enjoying what's right in front of me. So, when I'm creating photos, I want to see it so I can think about, I can get it out there to social media, rather than, did I get it? Have I created what I wanted to create? So it's slowing down, going deeper, not just accepting the surface of, I've got 10 pictures of that thing, but maybe I need one more. Maybe I need 2 more minutes. If you don't fit, and really working to be satisfied that what I've created is what I set out to create. Not just, that's good enough, but pushing myself farther, working harder, taking more time, being patient. Those are the things I have control over. I can decide to do those things, so it's really easy. It's just a matter of doing them, which is hard.